Welcome to the Ultimate Landscape CEO podcast. My guest today is Scott Lamon from Tynic Landscaping in Southwick, Massachusetts. Now, some people have asked me, hey, why do you only have larger companies? How about some smaller companies on your podcast? Scott is 3.5 million, and you're going to hear his journey, still very applicable to anyone who is trying to build their leadership team, really tackle their finances. He takes us through his journey of building up that three-legged stool and then the chair, the four-legged stable chair. He takes us through his financial journey, and he's been on the hot seat, and he explains how and where and why, and then what he has done to greatly improve his finances, get his team on board with open book management. It's interesting because Scott has done many things in his life. He has been a lobster boat fisherman. He has run or been an assistant director of an annuities part of a life insurance company where he's managed 100 people. And he's always loved working outside. He's always loved building homes and landscapes. And you'll learn a little bit about his spec building history. And then really the journey is about his landscape business and his personal journey as a business person, really grasping running the business like a professional business owner. And we also touch on some aspects of his family and his favorite car he just bought himself. Of course, there's always a car that I'm throwing into the conversation. Scott's a great guy, very upbeat, a lot of stick-to-itiveness. Here we go. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jeffrey. Good to see you again.
I'm so glad you're here. In the past, some people have said, hey, what about having a company my size on the podcast? And I have no clue what size they actually meant, but it made me think about you, a guy, still starting off, but having a lot of success. And so and you're a great talker.
Thank you.
So tell the audience, give us a quick introduction to you, your company.
Sure. My name is Scott Lamon. I own Tynic Landscaping. We're located in Southwick, Massachusetts, which is Western Mass. It's a the foothills of the Berkshires. We have up to 50 employees. We've got some seasonal employees and some part-time people, and we do about 3.5 million in revenue.
Okay. What's the mix?
So we're 60-40 on commercial and residential, construction and maintenance about the same. We do about 16% of our revenue comes from snow, about 10% from lawn care.
I saw in your email, you're in that little niche that looks like it's Connecticut, but it's actually Massachusetts. What? Like Connecticut has a straight border except for this little niche at the top. And
yeah, so there's all kinds of folklore about that. Some people think back when the states were being surveyed that the surveyors were drunk or somebody wanted to capture the three lakes here in Southwick, known as Congamon Lakes. But the real story is it was a mistake by the surveyors. It's a 2 square mile that if you look at the map protrudes into Connecticut.
Okay. So that means you have to be a Red Sox fan if you're in that little niche?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
That means you have to be a Red Sox fan if you're in that niche?
No, there's plenty of Yankees fans around, but yes, I grew up north of Boston and I'm a diehard Red Sox fan.
Gotcha. Yeah, that Yankee station, though, has gotten so big, it projects over half of New England. I think that has a lot to do with their economic success and huge fan base.
So it's actually one of our interviewing questions. We find out if that potential employee is a Yankees fan, and that's a point against him if he is.
That's funny. So take us back to the beginning here. You sent me like an overview, and you have a great development of your three legs and how you got those. And so let's hear how that started.
Sure. So like a lot of people in this industry, I started off when I was very young, mowing lawns as a kid, and just became passionate about it. My father was a mechanic, my brother's a mechanic, they own their own businesses, and I kind of wanted to head in a different direction. I ended up at Stockbridge School of Agriculture at UMass. I have a degree in turf grass management. I graduated in '91. And the funny thing is, I left the industry. So I've had some awesome experiences in life. I worked on a lobster boat for a year and a half in Maine as a director of operations for a large gas station chain. I worked at one of the largest individual annuity investment companies in the world, and had a very big, large amount of staff. I had 100 plus people. But my passion, I couldn't wait to get home. At a young age, I started buying investment properties. I could not wait to get home and get outside and start working and maintaining on my own properties. 2007, I made the decision that I was going all in. I was going to build a few spec houses during the winter time, and start mowing grass again, like where it all began. So that's just 16 years ago. And it was a challenging time to get into this. We had a pretty good recession. We got hit pretty hard here in Western Massachusetts. So my spec house business went away, and I decided I needed to throw some gasoline on the landscaping piece of the business. The business grew quickly, but it was kind of out of control. The way I describe it is it'd be like one fireman holding on to a 3-inch hose trying to put out a fire. And that was just, I was being thrown all over the place, and knew I needed to have some structure. At that time, we were just doing maintenance at the time, and a little bit of construction, just started a few hardscapes, in around 2008, 2009. And then I really saw the potential of what this business could do. So we started focusing on I was renting a space at the time, just started building the business one step at a time, adding a second mow crew and a third mow crew, and then a construction crew, and then a dedicated hardscape crew. So probably a pretty typical story to what a lot of people in this industry have experienced. But then I hit that $1 million mark, and it was just crazy. Trying to do everything by myself. I'd be here on the first, I'd be at work on the first till 2 a.m, stuffing envelopes by myself for invoices, and it just didn't make any sense. And I guess that was one of what really set off, hey, you've got to do something different. You've got to start relying on people. You can't do everything. You can't be everything if you want to grow the business. If you want to stay a 5, 6, 7, 8 employee company, you could probably sustain and do that. But that wasn't my long-term vision back then. If we fast forward a little bit to 2017, I was attending the Hardscape Expo, and I had been there the year before and went outside to the 20 acres and played with the toys. And it was a great experience. The next year I decided I really need to get some education. I need to start paying attention. So I actually signed up for a class that you were hosting and you were putting on in 2017. And I'm sitting in the room, and I'm looking at the stage, and there's a gentleman up there with this powerful message. He's wearing this blue blazer, and it's like Kenny Chesney just belting after hit after hit. And I'm just not understanding it. And I'm like, if we want to grow, I just need to work harder. What's all this finance stuff? And it didn't sink in. It did stick with me, though, because I started following you, started listening to podcasts. I read everything I could about the industry. Now, I've always been a student of the industry, but I've studied on equipment, on plant species, things like that. Never focused on the business, the financial side of the business, which is the one piece of advice I would give to anybody entering this industry, is really understand your numbers. And quite frankly, I did not have a handle on numbers until last year. What it actually cost me.
Scott, you were running an annuity firm and you weren't finance friendly?
No. So I ran a new business department, and I had an incoming cash department at Hartford Life. I was there for 8 years. I had great mentors, but we did not dive in at my level. I was an assistant director. We didn't dive into our organizational budgets as deep as we should have. We knew that we were hitting numbers. We knew when we needed to spend money or we needed to save money, but that was about it.
Yeah.
And really didn't have a full understanding of everything that goes into running a successful business. And it starts with knowing what your costs are.
Amen.
So to continue that story, I for a couple of years, I kind of floundered a little bit longer, and we were still having some pretty substantial growth. But things were not getting easier. It was not working less time. And again, I was still following you, and I signed up for the Summer Growth Summit in St. Louis with George Tucker's company. And it was just incredible. That was the first time that I ever attended an event that I'm sitting the first day I'm sitting at a table with 8 or 7 other people running they were clients of yours, very, very successful businesses. And it was just all so easy for them. And I just couldn't believe it. And then to hear George's story about, he wasn't the right guy for the CEO of his position. So he hired one, and he moved into a position that he loved doing at his company, which was, I think, sales and relationship management. I was like, that's me. That's what I want to do. I need to make that change. I can't solve every problem in this company. And I can't grow this company on my own. And I believe that fall, you and I had spoken a few times on the phone, and I committed to joining peer group, Leaders Edge peer group.
Yeah.
So a funny little story. So I went to the executive retreat in 21 or 22? No, 22. And I'm sitting at a table, and I didn't know the table. I didn't know anybody there. And the table I'm sitting at had a lot of the speakers for the event. And you had mentioned, or somebody had mentioned something about a budget. And I look over to the gentleman to the right of me, and it happened to be Matt Heiner. And he was doing a presentation, I think, on his video marketing plan, a program he had at the time. And I said, do you use a budget? And he looked at me and he says, I live and die by my budget. And I'm like, I've never used a budget. He looked at me like I had 3 heads. So Matt, if you're listening to this, so I look at my numbers every day. I'm in my budget every week. So I only have 1 head. So that was the beginning of a total change in the way that I operated. It took a while. I'm still growing and learning in that position, but no longer was I the only one that could solve problems. Prior to that, so 2020, I finally, let's back up. 2018, I hired an operations manager. So he took a lot of the pressure off of the day-to-day pressure off of me. I think we were about a $1.4 million company at that time. And I had a part-time office manager, and we went through 2 office managers. And then the third office manager is where where the rubber really hit the road. Some of the advice I had gotten through you a few times and in a few different ways was the good people don't cost you money, they make you money. And I found that I actually hired a recruiter and found the right operations manager. She's with me to this day, and she is an absolute cornerstone of our company. Some of the changes we made that year, we were using Peachtree or Sage. We moved to QuickBooks, just a lot more user-friendly. We could scale it, we'd grow into it. And then we started with Service Autopilot, which suited our needs at the time. And so just the integration of those 2 were absolutely game-changing for us. And then, like I said, so I guess it started that 2022, the executive retreat, where we started meeting my peer group. We're known as the Hickory Group. I think we're currently up to 22 members right now.
So just a little explanation for those listening. The executive retreat, it's a private event we put on just for our community. So it's not something we market to the outside, just in case people are wondering what that is.
Yep, and it's a fantastic opportunity to again sit with the best of the best. I mean, you've got some really great clients. One of the major benefits is I feel as though I could pick up the phone and call anybody I've ever met at any one of your retreats and ask a question and get an honest answer.
For sure. 100%. You got to get their number. You got to have your own business card. I'm not sure who carries business cards anymore. It's all the digital business cards.
Yep.
But back to your story. So you were talking about your three legs, which I think it's a great metaphor. And so you got your operations manager, you got them through a recruiter.
Yep.
You went through 2 or 3 office managers till you got the right one.
I went through 2. I had a part-time at first who brought me, who helped move our company forward. And then I got a second one when we decided we needed a full-time office manager. And she moved us forward a little bit, but we weren't going to get to where we needed to go. So we amicably, in red carpet exit interviewed that person or promoted them to another company, however you want to say it. And we hired a full-time, dedicated office manager. So those are the 2 legs of my stool. And at that time, and we were actually working in a little 12 by 10 office, the 3 of us, and COVID hit. So we reconfigured the shop here and we built some additional office space. And that's when we decided we needed that 3rd leg of our stool. And so we hired a maintenance operations manager. It's been in the industry for years, able to give our maintenance crews feedback on a daily basis. We're looking at everything from quality out in the field to productivity back in the office, just running some reports, taking a look at budgeted hours versus non-budgeted. And immediately we started moving in the right direction. So the benefits took off, I'd say a month or so after that executive retreat, where we were feeling a return on investment already. And I hadn't even met with the Hickory group formally at that point. We did realize, though, that I'm going to kind of fast forward one more time. And we did realize that a stool is great, but a chair is more comfortable. So we hired a full-time salesperson. So now we've got the stability. And now it's time for everybody to stay in their lane, everybody to own processes, everybody to document, enhancements or systems, and then just push those rocks forward. So looking back holistically at my story, it was me moving this massive boulder by myself. And now all of a sudden we're moving manageable size boulders, each one of us. And we're all heading in the same way. We're building the same retaining wall. We're all heading in the same direction.
I love it. So you went from a stool to a chair. I like that metaphor.
The stool was great, but the chair again is very comfortable. It allows me to take more time off. I know that all bases are covered when I'm not here.
And I think the first thing you did was buy a Corvette and drive.
I did.
Where did you go?
Last October, we had, I think it was last October. We had a Hickory group meeting in St. Louis, but right before that was the Equipment Expo in Louisville. It's about a 16-hour drive. It was and I had bought the car a week earlier, so I hadn't even broken it in yet, and I drove it out there. It was absolutely fantastic. We had the company hadn't hit its financial goals, but me personally, I have 3 boys. I have 3 wonderful kids that are all chasing their own dreams. I've got one in London that's a video game designer. That's Tyler. Nicholas in North Carolina. That's Nick. So that's where Tynic came from. And he is a cybersecurity. He works for a cybersecurity firm, and he just absolutely loves it. And then I have my youngest son, Benjamin, who has his own little book of business in East Long Meadow, and so he's mowing his own lawn. So he's my Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's my only hope if he's going to take over the company.
back to breaking in your car, and then we'll talk about your kids. But I want to get back to finances too. But just real quick, I tend to buy cars that have a few thousand miles on them, in part because the cars I want are all called for. But if I ever got a brand new car, I don't think I could sit around for it to break in, and I would immediately go cross country for a few days and break that car in. Was your car new or used?
No, it's a 2015. I actually bought it from an elderly gentleman up in Vermont. I had been looking for it for a while. It's a Stingray. It's a 2015 Stingray. That's not crazy, but it's funny. It's the first car I've ever owned. I've always owned trucks, and it was just it was amazing, an absolutely amazing ride. I did it nonstop. It was fantastic. It was a very, very comfortable ride.
So, and I know you mentioned your kids, but I want to get to your finances. When I came to one of your meetings and we met, or we've met before, but when I came to one of your meetings that Lorena was running, one of our peer group meetings, and somehow your finances became the topic of the conversation, and you weathered that well. A weaker person might have wilted in the Q&A and a lot of that we were giving you. A weaker person may have sort of folded there, but you did great. You want to share what happened there and what you did because of it?
Absolutely. Let me just address the car first. Let me address that. So the car wasn't bought because I hit my business financial goals. The car was bought because I hit my personal financial goals. I had paid I had invested, saved, and paid for my three kids' college tuitions earlier in the summer. Like a lot of people that start their own business, I had been through years before of not taking a paycheck or having a stack of uncashed paychecks. And I learned that if you want a healthy home, you need to pay yourself. And it needs to start there. I give credit to one of the block speakers that said, make sure you pay yourself first before you do anything else. And he encouraged people to make sure they take a paycheck every week. And I had gone through several years of saying, no, we need a new truck. I'm gonna not take a check this week or whatnot. And that's an enormous mistake. Again, if I could go back and redo, that's something that I would change. So that's where the car came in. Now the company, we were growing leaps and bounds. I think if we look back at our data, we grew at least 20% every year since I started. There was 1 year, I think we had a 35% growth rate, which was just absolutely unbelievable. And that was in the latter years. That was in the 19, 20, 21 range. So to get to our peer group meeting in Georgia, we, as a group, we were there. We had Tommy Thornton from Southern Ecoscapes hosted us down in Macon, Georgia. Absolutely incredible experience. Great hotel we stayed in. It was a 1800s hotel. It was just absolutely gorgeous. And you're right. I'm actually had a broken leg. I was on crutches, and I'm sitting in the corner when we hit finances, and I'm trying to scooch down a little bit and not, don't make eye contact. And apparently I did with Lorena or you, because you're right. I became the center of attention. And we had a net loss. So with depreciation, and I was using, that's Uncle Sam depreciation, not our, not the depreciation that our peer group uses, straight line depreciation. And I had a net loss of 2.8%, and the company had grown 20-something% in revenue. And how could that be? So these were the questions that my peer group was asking me, and we really drilled down. And you're right. I felt like Mike Tyson was just warming up on me there for a little while in that meeting. And the questions though were very pointed, and they were like, and I think it was stated, "Hey Scott, what's your goal?" And in 3-year goal, and my goal is to be a $5 million company in 3 years. And what was said to me was, "You're already a $5 million company. You're not charging enough." And so I took all of this feedback about purchases, about how quickly we depreciated everything. I had an inexpensive accountant for years. Huge mistake. Should have had a CPA right out of the gate, or as we were approaching $1 million in sales, just for that proper guidance. And I didn't do it. So we had done all of that. I get this feedback, and I get back from Georgia, and I'm wallowing around a little bit. And I actually sent a message to both you and Lorena Harrington, who leads my peer group. Pretty much, doctor, am I going to make it? I mean, am I going to live here? And the answer was a resounding yes, but you need to make some changes from what we talked about, what we learned. So I let that fester for about a week or two, and then it just all clicked. That feedback that I had gotten in Georgia about changes that we needed to make. First and foremost, we need to value the work that we do. It doesn't matter what the local chuck in a truck is doing. You need to put a value on what services, goods and services you offer your customers. And I'm proud to say that we made some major price increases, and out of 240 or 250 weekly customers, I think we lost one or two because of price. So we were way undervaluing ourselves. We also weren't paying close enough attention to the numbers. In years past, we would just buy, no budget, nothing in mind for purchases. And now we're really sticking to that budget. And April was an absolutely incredible month. So the previous April, we were around net zero for a profit. We hit 14.2% or 14.3% profit in April. Another, almost 14% or 14% in June. We just had 3 rock solid double-digit mid-teen numbers that we had never seen before, 3 months in a row. And it was just an incredible ride. I love this industry. I think that's why a lot of us are here. If I hit the Powerball tomorrow night or whenever it is, I got to buy a ticket. I do this for nothing. I absolutely love this industry. But when you get a company and you've got this very large ship now, it's not a little boat anymore with 50 employees. When you get this large ship headed in the right direction, it's almost euphoric as the captain of that ship when things are going right. Numbers are well, morale is high, leads are good, customers are satisfied, and we're continuing to grow. It's an incredible feeling. It very easily humbled by my thoughts of, struggling week over week, month over month, year over year in the early days with no real direction. Some of those pivotal points for me were developing a 3 and a 5 and a 10-year plan in an exit strategy, if there is to be one. I absolutely love the prospect of retiring in place, and there need not be a retirement strategy, and I can commit and come in and do as much as I'd like to or as little as I'd like to in the company. But knowing that we have the systems, structure, and people in place to be able to do that. Prior to my peer group experience was not an option. Was absolutely not an option. So
tell us a bit. You mentioned to me offline here that not only are you looking at the numbers, but you're having your whole team look at the numbers with open book management. Share a bit about that.
Absolutely. So when we got back from Georgia, I knew I've got a lot of great people. In fact, I wouldn't trade any one of them to the Yankees for any reason ever. But I've got some great people, and we weren't communicating enough with our staff. We knew that, so we instituted a weekly, full team meeting every Monday morning. Each one of the division leaders and myself and the office manager speaks to the group, but we needed more buy-in, and that buy-in came with open book management. And it seemed overwhelming and scary at first. How do you do this? How do you open the books and show everybody and make everybody feel good about it, and then get in that boat with you and start rowing? Well, it's easy. We started off very simply with a penny game, and you'd be amazed at how much some employees think that the owner makes, or how little costs are or expenses are, whether it be fuel or equipment maintenance or whatnot. So we started off with a penny game, and then we just opened up the books. We showed where every single penny was spent last year, and we also created a goal, and not necessarily a formal profit sharing plan, but we're going to base our bonuses, our year-end bonuses, off of the profitability of the company. And basically, anything above 10%, we're giving back to the staff, which is risky.
Wait, did you just say everything above 10%?
Correct. We want to be known.
We may want to have a little talk about that because, just because. So,
yes, Jeff. It's a little more complicated than that. We do have some purchases that we need to make and all that prior to the end of the year. So we are strategically planning it. But typically, there's been small bonuses for everybody at the end of the season. But the buy-in I was seeking was the bottom line profitability number. And after all of our expenses, after all of our taxes, and we wanted to be able to give these guys really good bonuses at the end of the year. And that's what everybody is working towards. We look at these numbers monthly together.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Immediately, though, everybody was invested. When I have Mo Crew members coming to me saying, "Hey, we don't need that. We can do with this, and we don't want to spend the money." I know that the message got right through the ranks that we need to be watching pennies.
Awesome. Excellent. So I love what you said that I said to you, and I wrote it down, that you were a $5 million company operating as a $3 million company. And that's really a profound concept. What else have you changed to emerge as a $5 million revenuing business with your staff?
So, basically that communication, that open book management has helped us move forward. Getting everybody on the same page has helped out quite a bit. And we are holding people accountable like we never did before. We are, publicly praising people that need to be praised. We're celebrating birthdays and anniversaries like we had never done before. And we have everybody invested in numbers. So we are job costing things before we do them now, instead of forensically doing them when it's too late. You still can learn that way, but it's a lot longer learning lesson than it is if you know you're going to walk into a job and be profitable.
Interesting. And so how are you arming or how are you asking of your sales and estimating team to put the work out there that you get the right revenue and gross profit per man hour?
So we had, everybody in this world just experienced something like we've never seen and hopefully never see again with this pandemic. And we found that in May of 2020, it wasn't who was the cheapest, it was who could get there the quickest to do a job. And selling was very easy at that point. Now we are absolutely noticing a change. We start with a profit pyramid with our 1 to 2 day jobs in a 35% profit range. And we're seeing that those are starting to dry up a little bit, and people are quoting those a little bit harder. So just last week, we moved that needle down 5%. And we need to pick that up on the operational side, because we still want to be profitable, but we want to be more efficient too at doing those jobs.
Excellent. Well, I think you're hosting the peer group meeting for your group in October. By the way, they're going to love to listen to this podcast before then. What a great intro to you being the host of this meeting. But I bet it's going to be an exciting meeting given these changes and given this open book strategy that you've taken, I can't wait to hear what your employees, how bought in are they, in October, and their view of where you're going and how it's going.
I tell you, if you're a member of a peer group and you ever want to be ultra motivated to get your ducks in a row and whatnot, volunteer to host one of these events, because I've got 21 incredible landscape company owners coming to my site in October. It's a little bit of pressure, but it's also a lot of motivation. So we're making changes, both how the shop's set up and making sure that, the wish list is getting done a lot faster than if I wasn't being held accountable, which is another great point. Another changing point was accountability. And our peer group does a fantastic job, specifically my pod. We meet every 2 weeks. We list something that we need to get done before the next call, and right out the rip, right after the pleasantries, where are you on X, Y, or Z? And these guys are diligent about asking, have you made improvements? Have you moved forward? And I am very, very much appreciative of my pod and my peer group, that they're all been pushing in the right direction. As a business owner, we're not really accountable to anybody except for, the bank or whoever we have loans with, and making sure our employees get paid. If as far as improvements go or changes in the company, it can happen on an owner's timeline. Well, here we've got, 3 very motivated pod group members that just push and push and push, and they're all 3 of them in my particular pod are great. And then to our group, it's the same thing. You get encouragement, you get advice, you get hey, better luck next time, try this, and it just moves you along at light speed. One of the things we want to do and want to be able to do is want to be healthy enough as a company financially to be able to get out there and do, these service projects that we do for the town. That was one thing that we didn't, that we talked a little bit about in Georgia, is that we spent a little bit too much money and a little bit too much time doing these projects for our town. We had redone the war memorial. We put in fountains and, a couple hundred trees, plants, and shrubs there, and we maintain it. But it's an absolute beautiful, beautiful center of town now that we've done that. And we didn't go into it hoping that people would call us and say, hey, we'd like you to do some work because we saw what you did there. But that's what happened. That wasn't our plan. I mean, I've always had the motto of give more than you take, whether it be to your community, at your church, with your employees. I mean, the employees are our most valued asset. And we, as owners, we're obligated to sit down and spend time with those if they're buying a house or getting married or having their first child. All those things should be celebrated and encouraged. So that's part of giving. It doesn't have to be, here's $1,000 bonus. It's giving that time and listening to that employee. We've had many conversations over the last couple of years with difficult customers that don't treat our employees correctly. And very simply have said to them, it's a lot easier to find customers now than it is good employees. So we're going to ask you, to be respectful to the guys that are on the site. If there is an issue, please call the office, follow the proper channels, etc. But so we've had to fire a few customers that, they weren't good customers. They weren't treating our people the way they should have been treated.
Yeah. That reminds me of a story. Back when I was running my family's landscape business, one of my direct reports ran the pool service division, and he was always complaining about this one client. I won't mention her last name, but, her family owned a football team and, hotels and things. Yeah, you can maybe figure it out. But in any event, wealthy person, billionaire. And she was always mistreating the employees. And so the staff rude to them, but never to me, right? Never to someone with my last name. And so I told my direct report, you can fire whoever you want. You're responsible for your budget, your overall numbers, and within that, you can fire who you want. And it was amazing. He had a conversation with her, thinking, all right, I think he was going to fire her, but ultimately he didn't fire her. They came to terms. So just empowering him to standing up to her, I think, and having a adult to adult conversation, and they worked things out. And so it was interesting. It was just a sort of eye-opening for me. Instead of reacting on what he said, hey, you should fire Mrs. blah, 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 I empowered him, and he ended up keeping her. He wanted to hit his numbers, and so he struck a chord, a balance with her that brought the respect to his team.
But part of our growth has been that empowering as well, not only with the office staff, but with every level of employee that we have. And we just simply ask the employee to ask themselves, is it good for the company? Is it good for the customer? Is it good for the employee? If the answer is yes to all three of those questions, just do it. Don't call the office. Don't ask your manager. Just do it. We'll figure it out after you've taken care of that. And that little step from a frontline laborer, just having that authority has changed the culture here quite a bit.
Excellent. So I appreciate you coming on. Have we touched on everything you wanted to in terms of sharing your story?
I think so. I think I guess we talked about the goods, the bads, and the uglies. But we should also just mention that, I would like to mention that, the peer group experience has been incredible for me. I've got some lifelong friends. I think you've been the beneficiary of a few of these. But every time we get together at one of our retreats, me and a handful or a couple or one other guy, we take the day and we go fishing, and we enjoy. We usually go fishing before or after, and it's just a lot of fun. It's the camaraderie is incredible. Half the time we talk about business while we're out there, but we also have a lot of fun. So I can't say enough about the peer group experience, and then just the rapid light speed change we've had since we've been a member of this peer group. So I wanted to thank you actually for that.
Well, you are most welcome. And I want to thank you for that huge slab of tuna you brought to my house. Actually, a couple. This thing was so big, I needed a bigger knife and a sharper knife to cut through the scales. That fish was amazing. And so I heard, Sonia told me that you're going fishing when the group comes to visit you, and you're going to go in Saybrook or Old Saybrook?
We're going to go out to Old Saybrook, some near your old stomping grounds. We're going to do some striped bass fishing. The migration is fish are heading south at that point. There should be some good sized fish around.
Man, you got to get me out on a boat with you.
Well, if you've got time, we're going we're going to Summer Growth Summit this year. We're going to fish Lake Michigan again for some king salmon. So there's room on the boat for you if you're interested.
I'd rather do it after the event so I can go out, get sunburned and drink and not worry versus before.
Gotcha.
You did the same in New Orleans, and you went fishing before. And it's always like you can imagine, right? It's one of those things. We'll have to set up a trip where I can sleep in the next day.
Yep. Maybe we'll try it in New Orleans this year. We'll fish after the retreat.
Well, let's talk.
It's only 100 miles offshore. You'll be fine.
Yeah. No, can't wait. Cannot wait. And yeah, you going to go tuna fishing again?
We're going to go tuna fishing again in January, and we're kicking around a Costa Rica sailfish marlin trip in February.
Okay. Let me know the dates.
Will do.
All right, Scott, I really appreciate you as a person. I appreciate what you shared. I appreciate you getting vulnerable here on your journey, and the best is yet to come.
Thank you, Jeffrey.